We talk Vecna, Eve of Ruin, and why high-level D&D adventures are so hard to design, today on Dungeon Craft.
Deathbringer here. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and sign up for the Deathbringer RPG newsletter below.
Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor DM, and this channel is about all things homebrew D&D and other tabletop role-playing games. If that's what you're into, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and click all to receive all our videos. You can support the channel and get bonus content, including access to my GM's notebook and exclusive Discord by joining Patreon at the link below. Thanks to all the patrons for making this content possible. Back in the 90s, I wrote several scenarios for Dungeon Magazine, and all of them were for mid-level characters. Most of the scenarios printed in Dungeon were for character levels 3 to 6. The editors were always looking for high-level scenarios, but very few writers could pull it off. Levels 3 to 6 are the sweet spot. Characters aren't fragile and have access to cool powers like Fireball, but they're not invincible. They have limits. Which brings me to Vecna, Eve of Ruin from Wizards of the Coast, their latest high-level campaign adventure. This module has the highest ambitions, and it's backed by the greatest design team with decades of experience with this game. So if anyone should be able to make a high-level adventure, it should be them. But does this book fulfill its lofty ambitions? We're going to get to that in a second. First, I want to let you know I did not receive a review copy, and I'm not being paid for this review. Moreover, this isn't just a review. To me, this module, with all its strengths and weaknesses, illustrates the challenges you are going to encounter if you're attempting to run a high-level game. And the question remains, does high-level D&D work at all? That's why I'm going to be giving a lot of background, and I'm also going to be taking some side quests as I think about the ideas that this book presents. With that in mind, let's get going. According to Wizards of the Coast and mainstream sites like CBR, 50 years later, Vecna is still D&D's most horrifying villain, and Vecna, Eve of Ruin, proves it. And this is why you need independent YouTube channels like this one. Vecna is not D&D's most horrifying villain, and he's only about 35 years old. The name Vecna first appeared in Eldritch Wizardry in 1976 and was the idea of TSR co-president Brian Bloom. But in OD&D, Vecna is just a legend. His evil eye and hand were powerful magic items in AD&D, but there is no stat block for Vecna in the Monster Manual or deities and demigods. Vecna didn't become an actual character until the second edition of AD&D. The module Die Vecna Die was the last official AD&D module printed by TSR before it was bought by Wizards of the Coast. Vecna was the villain in the first season of Critical Role, and a villain called Vecna appears in Stranger Things. So credit for raising Vecna's profile goes to Matt Mercer and the Duffer Brothers. But Wizards of the Coast really wants to make Vecna their Thanos or Darkseid, and that's the central premise of this book. Alright, let's take a look. Vecna, Eve of Ruin is hardbound, 256 pages. It is glued and stitch bound. There are stitches in here. It does not have a ribbon, and it could really use one because it includes all the monster stat blocks in the back. I don't know why modules do that. It's way more convenient to have the stat blocks in the text and repeated in the back or just in the text itself to prevent flipping. The PCs are sent by Super Wizards Tasha, Mordenkainen, and Illustria to recover the Rod of 7 Parts before Vecna completes a ritual to remake the universe in his evil image. A vampire warlord called Cass also wants to destroy Vecna, and the chapters are a series of fetch quests that send the characters to D&D's most famous planes and worlds, starting with the Underdark and continuing through the Astral Plane, Ravenloft, Eberron, etc. D&D's most famous villains, including Lord Soth, Acererak, Strahd, and Loth, all make cameo appearances. Let's start with the good. The art is fantastic, and the maps are very well done. There are some really neato concepts here, like this bridge puzzle and the secrets tracker. As the players learn secrets about Vecna, they gain a meta currency that can help defeat him in the final encounter. Very cool. The Ruined Colossus is the standout adventure. It takes place inside a giant robot, and it's got a self-destruct sequence at the end. I just love this art. Look at that brain. It is so cool. Very original, fantastic ending. This is maybe the best scenario to appear in official Wizards product that I've seen in years. Bravo and well done to whoever wrote this. Their name is not included with the scenario. So the problems. This is Death House. The scenario is pretty good in and of itself, but Strahd's appearance doesn't come till the very last column of the last page. And he disappears faster than Bela Lugosi's body double in Plan 9 from Outer Space. The book dedicates a 2-page spread to Strahd's stats. But to defeat him, all you have to do is make a single DC 20 deception check, and you avoid fighting him. So why include the stats? And since any 14th level character can do this, why even include it? And why have any roleplay if it can be solved with just a die roll? The next issue, and this is a problem with high-level D&D, not the adventure, this is the Tomb of Wayward Souls. The complex's walls are immune to any spell or magical effects that would change their shape, such as pass wall or stone shape. This is my first problem with high-level D&D. The game presents players with all these spells to choose from. Then, if they choose certain spells, they create scenarios that say, no, that spell doesn't work here. The next issue is, it's a railroad. Getting started, Lord Neverember says, "Greetings, my heroic friends. 4 prominent citizens have been kidnapped in the past several days. May I count on your help in rescuing them?" What if they say no? And again in the Wizards 3. "There's no time to waste. Once you've reassembled the rod, we can all confront Vecna and stop his heinous plan. You'll be the heroes of the multiverse." How does that sound? What if it sounds like no thanks? Another problem, no guidance is given if the players fail to retrieve one of the 7 parts, or the bad guys get their hands on it. But the weakest part is Vecna himself. He doesn't appear to page 202. He's off-stage plotting until the final scene. Without the opportunity to interact personally with the heroes, there's little reason to hate or fear Vecna. We are told he's evil, but we never get to see it. We see visions of what he will do if he succeeds, but we don't see anything of what he's done, and he doesn't interact with the characters personally. It even says he's too focused on the ritual to pay the characters any mind until they confront him. And his stat blocks, inconveniently located 50 pages later, the usual D&D overwritten micro math that will require GMs to put in some serious seat time before running it. What do I mean by micro math? Why do we need his 3 to 18 statistics that go over 18? Why not just the bonuses? His attacks include Afterthought, Hit, 7, piercing damage plus 9 necrotic damage. Why not just say 16 hit points of damage? And for the love of all that is holy, Game Masters, if you're running a high-level module like this, do not roll out the damage. The bad guys have a lot of attacks for like 16 hit points, with PCs that have 165 hit points. Just use the average damage. It is way faster. Here's another, the Reaction Dread counter spell. If player characters cast a spell on Vecna, if that spell is 5th level or higher, Vecna makes an intelligence check, DC 10 plus the spell's level. Well, that's about 15. His intelligence is plus 6. Why not just say 9 or better? This stat block could be reduced to these 2 post-its. I took Vecna's proficiency bonus and other bonuses, and I averaged them together. He's a plus 10 monster. He gets plus 10 to hit, plus 10 to all the saving throws. Rounded the hit points to 275. He's got 4 attacks, because bonus actions are really attacks. Rotten Fate, 95, save for half damage. Flight of the Damned, 36, save for half damage. Afterthought times 2, 16. He can teleport 30 feet, inflict 10 hit points of damage, and he regains 80 hit points every round. Reactions, counterspell, roll a 10 plus to cancel any spell, rebuke. Any attackers suffer 10 damage. I have no idea why these stat blocks are that complex. What do people want to double check the math? I think these should come with 2 stat blocks. This and the easy stat block. It's just a sidebar with the final numbers worked out for you. As it stands, Game Masters are just going to have to do this for themselves. And my final observation is it is very lore heavy. Like in the old days in the village of Hamlet, the evil cleric didn't have a backstory. Like we get why Cass hates Vecna, how they used to be friends, but now they want to kill each other. But all this happens off screen. This was a problem with Dungeon Magazine too back in the day. That's when villains started getting these multi-page backstories. And they were always asking me like, why is the elf evil? And it's like, I don't know, they're an evil elf. For me, adventures should be totally utilitarian. If something's not going to directly affect the players, I don't really need to know about it. As it stands, Eve of Ruin is a mixed bag. The art is great, it's got some cool ideas, but Game Master's going to have to do a lot of work to make this work. Now we get into the philosophy part. There's this misconception, I think, with a lot of players, especially newer players, that if only we attain higher levels, Like, that's where the fun is. Like, if I was 16th level, I'm going to be more powerful and have more fun than when I was on 6th level. I don't believe that that's true. High-level D&D can get very sloggy, especially if you have a game master who's going to insist on rolling 2d8 and adding +4 when your character has 165 hit points. Another misconception is if you want an epic story with an epic plot, you need to have an epic character who is 10th or 15th level. I see this in the comments all the time when I talk about my 30-year campaign. The highest any character has gotten in levels is 7th or 8th level. And I get hit with, well, I want to play epic stories. Who says my stories aren't epic? There's a great article in Dragon Magazine issue 5 called Gandalf Was a 5th Level Wizard, and it analyzes the spells Gandalf uses, and none of them are over 1st, 2nd, 3rd level. Look at the original Dragonlance modules. Raistlin, the mysterious and feared wizard. 3rd level, he's got 3 spells and 8 hit points. The character level has no impact on how heroic a character is or how epic the story is. The other fallacy is that to have a really compelling plot, you need to threaten to destroy the entire world. I think saving a village where you know all the NPCs is more compelling than stopping some big bad guy from destroying a world you've never seen. And just because your villain is Strahd or a Sararak or Vecna doesn't mean they're going to be the most memorable villain. I ran the Caves of Chaos recently for my youth group, and we ran it old school, no death saves, dead at 0 hit points. And they were in this hobgoblin guard room, they were low on hit points, and the exit was right to their right, and they're fighting these hobgoblins, and one of them gets a natural 20 and totally skewers the NPC bard. Kills him instantly. One player wanted to stay, get revenge, but they're like, no, we've got to go. We're too low on hit points. So we ended the scenario on a sad note. They go back to the Keep on the Borderlands, they lick their wounds, and the next week, they return to the same cave. And outside the cave is that bard's head on a pike. They went into that cave and went room by room, not looking for the chieftain, the big bad guy. They were looking for the guy that killed their friend. And when they finally killed him, they not only killed him, they like dismembered him. They needed catharsis because they hated that guy. And it wasn't because of the backstory. The Hobgoblin was a nobody. He emerged as the campaign's main villain as a result of the die rolls and the decisions the players made. That's why some rando monster that steals something from the characters, who kills one of the characters, they're always going to have more emotional impact than a Vecna ever could. But that's what I think. What do you think? Share in the comments below. And if you want to see how I create an epic villain for mid-level characters, check out my Reviled Society campaign video. I'll see you next time. May all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. The eve of ruin is when someone brings a vegetable platter to game night. Don't be that guy. Be the guy who clicks on more dungeon craft